I'd like to give it up to Veriscope. This is Quinn and Ryan.
So first of all, I want to say that as much as I am a huge fan of engineers, I am not one. And in fact, I spent 10 years in politics, federal and state. So I'm mostly here on behalf of the people that I used to work with to say, we're sorry. And like a lot. It's been a weird year, but depending on who is posting what in your Facebook feed, it's been an extra weird year. Because if you heard, for instance, that the Pope endorsed Donald Trump, or that Barack Obama banned the Pledge of Allegiance, your year has been weirder than reality, because those aren't true. Those are what we're now all calling fake news. And this problem has been widely discussed in the past couple of weeks and probably before by prescient people. So I won't go into the details or rehash it too much, except to say that this problem is getting worse, not better. And as much as we're having a discussion about it at very high levels, we all need to be cognizant of it, and we all need to try to fix it. So Veriscope is an attempt to acknowledge that the problem isn't just that we're getting more fake news, it's that fake news is actually eroding our trust in media in general. If some things are totally bogus, then maybe all things are totally bogus. It's a perfectly reasonable response if you're a casual purveyor of news. If you really don't know who to trust, then you just stop trusting everybody. So our concern is that this is getting worse and will accelerate. So we're going to try to stick a thumb in the dam today. I will acknowledge that we're not going to solve everything, but we're going to try to solve this. Actually, go back here. So it's not just that the incentives are to win elections, it's also that they're to make money. It's not just that the actions to counter this don't exist, they do. There are fact checkers, but how many people visited a fact checking site today? Not me. How many people visited Facebook today? Like all of us. So the problem is that if you got fake news, you are not finding out that it's fake until maybe much later, if ever. It's like these things exist in different places and in different times. So we're going to try to fix that a little bit. We are not going to fix Facebook. We are not going to fix the internet. We're not going to convince people that their lies or biases are wrong. My team is very skilled, but we are not Mark Zuckerberg. We are going to try to help confused people be a little less confused, and we're going to try to help slow the stem of this tide. How we're going to do that is a two-part approach. One is a simple filter for the worst stuff. It's a spam filter for your news feed. It can't remove things, but it will tell you when something is egregious. That's an automatic technological approach. The second thing is like Rotten Tomatoes for news. It's if you didn't know anything about movies, you weren't going to read 9 different critiques of a given movie and then hope that those people aligned with your views of movies and then spend $17 anyway. You're going to check one number. One number is going to tell you definitely worth checking out, totally not worth checking out, or maybe I'm going to decide for myself. But it's at least going to cut it off somewhere. And so here's Ryan to tell you how.
Let's go on an adventure. A potentially dangerous adventure. We are going to go to Facebook. Now before we do so, let's equip ourselves with a Veriscope. So when I open up the app, the first thing I can do is add a number of lenses that represent journalistic sources that I trust. So maybe you trust the New York Times. Maybe you trust factcheck.org and Politico. I've enabled 3 lenses on my Veriscope that will help me identify and dissect potentially malicious news online. Now let's navigate over to Facebook. On my Facebook feed, my friends are sharing news articles, and you'll notice that a couple things are different. Foremost, in the upper right corner, is an aggregate number that represents what my lenses have determined is the trustworthiness of this news source. So 91 out of 100, the facts in this article mostly pan out. If I scroll down my newsfeed a little bit, we find another article with a trust score of 3 out of 100, meaning this is probably not trustworthy, this is probably malicious. You'll also notice the red flag when our API has tipped us off that this comes from an incredible source. Now, if you want to dive a little bit deeper and check out this news source anyway, I can open up the article and use some more tools of the Veriscope to help me understand what's going on here. Is this credible? Is this not? For starters, I could ask for a summary. What are all of my lenses saying about this news article? Well, factcheck.org has said, this site was created explicitly to spread fake news. And the New York Times notes that this is not ABC News, it's a different website, it's malicious. It's trying to trick us. If I'm still not convinced, if I need more, I can activate one of the lenses. Maybe I'll activate New York Times. And when I activate this lens, I'm giving journalists from the New York Times the ability to add inline annotations to this article and identify specific pieces that don't make sense or are wrong. So if I then click on one of these annotations, I can see a comment that somebody made from the New York Times specifically refuting that point. All right, folks. That's the client side of our app. We have one other small piece that will enable journalists to make those annotations themselves. So if you're a journalist and you're responsible for reviewing these articles, you'll use a similar version of our app. You'll decide if you want to make a review or an annotation. You'll highlight the text that you want to review, make your annotation, and publish it to the web so that people can read your reviews. And this, again, is the journalist side of our app. So that's our app, Veriscope. Look for it in the Chrome Web Store in a couple weeks.
We'll close just by saying that we do have a further plan for growing this out, starting with users that simply use the automated system, building a base, expanding that to involve the fact checkers whose full-time job is to send you this kind of information. Hopefully they will be early partners. And then finally expanding it to anybody who wants to create a particular channel for the users to subscribe and to then add to their kind of Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes score. As this expands, we expect that you'll be able to learn more about your news and not just read through everything and trust everything evenly, but have at least a jumping off point, some kind of a compass, so that we're all not just lost in Facebook.